My name is Barbara Bulc. I'm a founder of the SDG Collaboratory, and we focus on research and co-design of new structures that prioritize well-being of people, communities, other species, and the planet over just economic growth and profit.
This is my first time at a system innovation conference, and I know about product innovation, but when it came to a system, I was really surprised that your system was a whole city. So, what were you trying to resolve, and why, and how did you approach it?
We focus, when we talk about innovation, we look at the system, living systems, and looking at the city, this is a perfect example because cities are a living systems. They're organized as a living system. They have their own governance. They have multi-stakeholder collaboration, all kinds of different communities, ethnicities, localities, and so on and so forth. So it's a perfect, I would say, a laboratory. It's a real living laboratory where we can introduce and think together with communities what kind of innovation are really meaningful so that the well-being is prioritized. And it's when we talk about well-being, we have to understand that well-being means for different communities different thing. It's objective and subjective, and it's very important to understand what components of well-being matters to communities. So essentially, this kind of discovery needs to be participatory, needs to include a deep listening, not top-down imposing the solution, but actually grounds up, listening to communities and innovate together with them. And when we innovate together with them, we ask, what do we value? And in innovation, very often, value, as you know, it's an economic term, and usually innovation is taught through perspective of a market innovation and making profit. But here we challenge this approach and we think about what do we actually value? And value is determined by values. So we question our own values, what is actually matter to the community. And we see if we want to create well-being of communities, it is essential that we innovate with processes of building trust, that is essential, and also with bringing care into processes and to communities, into workforce, into municipalities, into how we live together as communities in the city.
When it comes to innovation, some innovation is incremental, very small scale, but the phrase I heard today was kind of embrace the complex. Like a city is going to be very, very complex. So how, there was talk about people not being in the silos. How do you bring all of those things together where people are, some people work at the higher level, they're strategic, they love this big system thinking, while some people, that would just be too much. So how do you bring all those stakeholders together?
Yes, it's a very good question. Addressing complexities and system thinking is challenging for, I would say, us humans, because we are not wired to think like that. We are really wired and educated, so it's in a rather linear way. And I think what helps is we imagine a bird's view. Taking a bird's view of the city requires different approaches. And this kind of approaches are they also bringing stakeholders and community into participatory processes. For example, mapping the city, looking at different environments in the city, a different kind of meetings that change, not instead of meeting in the offices, meeting at their own localities, maybe in a corporation, maybe at the department of the municipality, maybe in the primary school, maybe on the farmer's field, so that different stakeholders actually have a lived experience of the city or if that of that locality.
So in your slide, you held a meeting you held a meeting in a school where people had to sit on the little chairs just to remind them of their past, that they were once children, and just to embrace the kind of all the stakeholders, all the diverseness.
It's yes, indeed. When we try to bring the different stakeholders together, what I mean by those different stakeholders is local government, businesses, entrepreneurs, various NGOs, then also youth groups, the very important part of the NGO ecosystem, formal and informal, citizens themselves, but also media, because they are also communicating about what is happening. So we bring all this together in a space. It's like the primary school in the first class, where the chairs are very, very small. And it was funny to see that actually the teacher who hosted that meeting, she felt very uncomfortable to offering the classroom with the small chairs to this, some of them very well known and influential stakeholders, participants in the city. And when we explained to her that the reason that we are inviting everybody to sit in these wonderful little chairs is that they feel embodied how it was when they were 6 years old, how did they feel, and how would now, with their experience now, how would they like to envision the future. And I think it was extraordinarily meaningful. And we in fact started the meeting itself with remembering how it was when they were 6 years old, and trying to invite them, what if you were 6 years old now? How would you like to imagine a different future together as a community with those in the room? So this was actually introduction to a meeting that we had.
You talked about values and value as an economic, mainly as an economic term. But for businesses now, for businesses that win government contracts or benefit from taxpayers' money, there is an onus on them to deliver social value. So not just to take the profit, but to try and do something that puts back into society, into the local regions. How did you get businesses involved and for them to contribute to the added value?
Yeah, I think it's a process. It's a slow process that starts with building trust, and it takes a number of meetings. And when the trust is built, then you can start creating together. I think starting small and understanding for them, they say, why would we innovate with values? For example, value of care. Trying to understand why it matters that we bring care into the communities. And as we were working in the cities during COVID and after COVID, I think during the COVID pandemic, we saw how the importance of care was critical. And we saw that the systems in the city were not able to support the communities. And it was actually the citizens and communities who had to step in, not businesses and not the municipality. And I think this really helped to think about the importance of care for all stakeholders in the communities. And specifically for business, I think it's a slow process. I think identifying a champion businesses with maybe the CEO of the leadership or the board that is open and has good examples. I think this is how other businesses can get inspired. And we see today, even though it's not a majority, there is a number of real champions coming up, either in food, healthy food, or also in the, how the technologies are used in a meaningful way. So there is a number of possibilities, and we need more businesses that shed light how do we innovate with more care for the communities. And I think because so much capital is concentrated around the businesses, they're actually essential. We need these champions to showcase how we can make a different world, and businesses are really instrumental change makers. But I think not businesses alone, businesses with their entire ecosystem of partners. That's where the change is happening.
What was the name of the city where the project was based?
Mm-hmm.
And I saw some examples of you working with young adults and children.
Mm-hmm.
Are they have they been a forgotten generation since COVID? Have they not had their
Yeah,
voices heard?
yeah, yeah. So the initiative, the city where we worked is Cluj Napoca. It's a former capital of Transylvania in Romania. The initiative is called Our Cluj. You can see it also on the website ourcluj.city. It is part of a global network of other cities in other continents, in countries in Tanzania, in Ghana, in Ecuador, and Colombia. So we are working with the cities um, to prioritize well-being and with a special focus on next generations. How can we be together guardians for the well-being of next generations? And of course, this is something that we need to do now. And then we have to do that together with young people. And indeed, the real challenge is that young people are taken into this conversation very often in a very tokenistic way, just to be represented, but they actually are not listened to. And I think what we try to do is to create a safe spaces where they were listened to and try to identify some possibilities to bring together collective voices of young people so that the policymakers and the businesses take part in this conversation. And very often, I think it's important to create this initiative from the day one together with young people. I think this is essential and not easy. And we forget that generations today very often feel hopeless. There is a lot of hopelessness. There is a lot of mental health issue from anxiety to depression. Suicide rates among young generations are going up. And I think it's really important to open up spaces where they are listened to, but not only listened to, that when what the young people share, that then these solutions and ideas get implemented, that they feel confident that they have been truly listened to, not just talk, but actually walking the talk and showing that then together as a city, as a community, we can make a change.
What is your hope for the future from this work?
My hope for the future from the work of our city and our Cluj is, first of all, to learn with together with all partners that we work with, and I hope that this is an example for not only the cities in Romania where this project happened to be placed, but also for other cities in Europe and for the rest of the world. I think most of the cities are growing, are facing very similar challenges. And we also know that today our planet, over 50% is below 30 years old. And we have to give hope to young generation and show them inspiring lighthouse examples so they feel empowered, that they can have a voice, they can be participants in decision making to create a better future and well-being for the communities.
Thank you, Barbara. That's been fascinating. And I will share all your links that you mentioned earlier. Thank you.
Thank you. My pleasure.